Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Yeah.
All right, everybody, we're going to get started. And we got YouTube over there. For everybody, if you're self-conscious, just don't look. You don't have to look at the camera. They're looking at us. We don't have to look at them. And so my name is Matthew. I am the founder, publisher of Nervous Ghost Press. We're here with Pete from Chills at Will podcast and Luis Rodriguez of Chucha. That's where we are in Sylmar, California. This is Voices of California 3. We began in the virtual space in 2020 where we brought California voices from all across California, northern, southern, central, and so on. And we were able to work together, come together, build our communities. The community is growing. All of our communities are immediate and extended communities, who we are, where we're from, where we're going. And these types of events are beautiful. They're spectacular. They're traumatic. They hurt us. They're toxic even, sometimes. But it's who we are and it's how we grow. And so we're excited to be here in the space that welcomes us, that is warming. And I'll open up with 2 poems before I introduce our MC this evening, who will be able to get us where we need to go. They'll try to take it, but don't let them. Notice how when needing someone the most, something that's been lost, waiting for, hungry for, fighting for, dying for the most. Wonder where it all went. Some things are meant to be fixed instead of washed away and tossed out into the warmth of others, hoping for just trauma, for some pain to feel worthy of the cause. As if the pretty life wasn't enough. Well, damn fool, send some of that my way. Skeleton keys, open backbones broken from years of bleeding out into Lunchables, PB&J pillow forts, egg and cheese burritos, and yes, the foil will keep them warm, at least until it's time to eat. I'll be gone soon, you better learn how to cook. Oh, buddy, did I? Cream cheese, caviar, don't get me started on butter, sugar, and scraped burned toast, toasted with hands that hit with love, beat down ignorance until peeling oranges was second nature. Just grab one and you'll see. How many times could you be shot and then create a legacy, honored by strangers and countries so hard that your hair was too afraid to go gray? Tell that story. And then Brenda likes this one, I think. Do you stand where your words fall? Do you stand where your words fall? Heels dug in the sand, voice cracking, skin crawling at every boisterous command. Do you stand where your words fall, held and coddled by art, controlled by the voice in your head, not your heart? Do you stand where your words fall, proving your ancestors had cause, watching murder after murder, finally taking up arms? Do you stand where your words fall, with bones buried beneath, where you took your first breath, where you learned how to breathe? Do you stand where your words fall, listening to cries and their screams? Do you silently walk through the blood in the streets? Do you stand where your words fall, or make money off traumas, watching children pray to darkness, holding the dreams of their mamas? Do you stand where your words fall, while pretending to care, pretending to fight in a room with chilled air? Do you stand where your words fall? Do you know the hype and the slogans? Are you tired of defending the system that's broken? Do you stand where your words fall, or will you continue to lie? Will you continue to laugh while we continue to die? Do you stand where your words fall, or sign checks to the dead, keep the ruins decaying? It's just money to spend. Do you stand where your words fall? Will you do what you claim? Will you give up your seat and stop playing this game? Will you stand where your words fall, or just motionlessly move back and forth without purpose and nothing to prove? Will you stand where your words fall and experience hurt? Feel the fire in our chest and the strength of our words. Will you stand where your words fall? Is it something you fear? We've been standing for generations, and we are still here. And so it's my pleasure to introduce from Sacktown, our MC, Pete.
Are you kidding me? I got to follow that. Are you kidding me? Just a pleasure to be here. Again, my name is Pete Reel. I'm with the Northern California delegation, including Mr. Jeremy Green, who will be up here on the mic in a little bit. Doug Brown as well, going to claim those San Francisco roots. Pleasure to be here. I do host the Chills at Will podcast, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a literary podcast. Been blessed to have Mike Songson and Doug Brown as guests, and I'd love to have any and all of that invitations out there for you. I feel honored to be here. This really is a blessed and a sacred space. My first time being here, I've been at the old one probably 10 times. I used to teach down here. And I would take my students, my high school students, to Tia Chucha's, just to bask in the greatness that is Luis and Trini and all the staff and everybody involved. So truly a sacred space. I apologize if you heard this story before, but my story involving Tia Chucha's. So I had a student, quiet. We all know the student like that who seems to be kind of emotionless. And she's over in the corner, at the old space, reading a book. And I look over and I see it's a dictionary, right? And I said, oh, hey, what are you reading, right? She said that this is the first time she'd ever seen a Spanish to Zapotec, her parents from the indigenous peoples of Oaxaca, the dictionary translating from Spanish to Zapotec. That's what Luis provides. That's what Trini and Tia Chucha provide, is just a voice, right? So, again, I'm just honored to be here. The time that I've done the podcast, as well, I see Tracy is here. I had, the blessings to speak with Tracy and so many others, so many incredible creatives. So I don't want to talk too long because you're not here to see me. We have so much talent in the place. It is ridiculous how much talent there is. And again, Luis Rodriguez, the great, will come and talk to you a little bit about the space and about what's going on tonight. So please welcome Luis J. Rodriguez.
Welcome to your home. This space was created for you, for community. It was created for art, for music, for dance, and for poetry. And it's important to point out that one thing about the arts, the way it should be, it's not competitive. We love everyone. We love each other. We embrace everybody. Nervous Ghost Press, a new press, we support that. We have a beautiful press, Tia Chucha Press. We also support Flower Song Press. We support other presses. In other words, we're here to spread the beautiful love and the beautiful words and the culture and make sure that everybody has access to it. I also recognize some of the people who helped me in my campaign. I'm not campaigning. It's over with. It's done. But on the other hand, the campaign doesn't really end. It's not a campaign for office. It's a campaign to keep our dream alive. Campaign to keep this kind of places in every neighborhood and to fight for equities and to fight for justice and to make sure that we can have a world that is full for every one of us. So let me just welcome you all. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everybody, and Jesse, and everybody who put this together, and my friend Matthew. Just one last thing. Trini will join us. Trini and me have been working hard to make this place happen, but I have to personally thank all the young people. By the way, Jessica too, she was part of our great family, LA Poets Society. All the young people who have really graced and taken what me and Trini started and taken it even further. So I want to thank them all for all the help and all the beauty. Karen behind the counter there and everybody else that's here. So that we know that we extended this. We turned everything over to these young people a few years ago. It's in their hands. Me and Trini aren't here day by day anymore. We're here whenever they want us. Trini's on the board. I show up whenever they call on me. But the point is, it's community. It belongs to you all. So it's my tia, my aunt, but guess what? Her spirit still pervades what we do. Thank you all very much. I'll read later. Thank you.
Do not fear. We'll definitely hear from Luis later on. I would always, when I would bring my students for field trips, I always request the Tia Chucha poem. He can do what he wants, but, I might kind of, elbow you a little bit. I'd be remiss. I didn't do a great job kind of introducing the event. It's Voices of California Part 3. We did the first two virtual, or 2020 was virtual. 2021 was hybrid. And, just had a chance to hear from some great people. Miriam Gerba was part of the first one, and Elena Maria Villamontes was here. I remember talking to her about my refrigerator. I had a refrigerator. I'm just like, how is this even possible? The moths, just some greats, right? And I also want to thank, of course, Matt Mejia for doing a great job. He's, his poetry is incredible. Annie's over here. Annie's on the mic. Jesse Tovar is absolutely the hero. Jesse assists the 2022 to 24 Altadena Poet Laureates. He's with My Place Cafe, Spectrum, a writer on his own, and just somebody who really, stays out of the limelight, but he deserves it. He does an incredible job setting this up, so thanks a lot to Jesse for sure. Thank you. Yes. Our first poet to start off the night, Luis himself said it on the blurb of this book. He said, "What others forget, Mike the poet remembers." All right? And that is, what a great line from Luis, and so true, okay? I always say that Mike is as LA as, big boy in the morning, as LA as a Dodger dog, right? A little bit about Mike. Mike Songton, a.k.a. Mike the Poet, is a third-generation Southern Californian, poet, professor, journalist, historian, and tour guide. His book, Letters to My City, was published by Writ Large Press. He's written for Poets and Writers, Metropolis, KCET, Alta, Wax Poetics, PBS, LA Taco, LA Review of Books, LA List, Boom, and the Academy of American Poets. His poetry has been featured on public radio stations, KCRW, KPCC, KPFK, and Spectrum News. Songson is the coordinator of the first year, I don't call him Songson, Mike, is the coordinator of the first year experience program at Woodbury University, and he taught high school before that. He's been awarded by the Los Angeles Press Club. Get ready to be wild. Here we go. Mike, the poet, Songson.
Tia Chuchas, what up? How's everybody? Yeah. I've been in all the Tia Chuchas locations, and I've loved them all. But this is the most beautiful, and things just keep getting better and better and better and better. So let's give it up for Tia Chuchas. How beautiful is this, right? Just taking a deep breath and looking at it and checking it out and savoring it and celebrating it, man. And I got to give it up to Matthew and Peter and these guys too, man. These guys are really community-minded, and Matthew, I've watched this guy work with students. He was doing a lot of stuff at ELAC and at Cal State LA, and we had some of the same students, and everybody always talked about what a great guy Matthew was. And if you ever go on Peter's podcast, Peter listens. He reads people, he reads their book, and then he asks them really good questions, and he really listens, and he really zeroes in on things. So shout out to you guys in your capacity. And Jesse, thank you, man, for just always reading. Your tentacles are everywhere, brother. So, all right, I'm going to read all new poems, some brand new stuff. This one is called My Other Place of Birth Was Middle Earth. Anybody ever been to Middle Earth Records? It was in Downey, long gone, but all men have secrets and here is mine, so let it be known. Sometime around 1989, I started going to Middle Earth Records in Downey. It was damn near the only place between Long Beach and Melrose that you could get rare music on import. Usually I was sitting shotgun in Philip Kwan's 1983 Mazda RX-7. Kwan wasn't even 16 yet, but his older brother Young let him take the car, and we went all over LA County with the windows down and the music loud. Stop me if you think that you've heard this one before. Middle Earth was where we bought cassette tapes of Depeche Mode, The Smiths, The Cure, New Order, Susie and the Banshees, Echo and the Bunnymen, early U2. I even got that Bowie compilation, Changes. My other best friend, Philip Medina, was usually with us too. Medina loved the Police, UB40, Scritty, Politi, Trash Can Sinatra's, Howard Jones, and we all loved Morrissey. The three of us rolled to Middle Earth from our neighborhood in Cerritos, sometimes on the 605 North, sometimes on Lakewood Boulevard, down the long thoroughfares past Artesia, Alondra, Rosecrans, Imperial before Firestone. K-Rock was our sonic Bible. Richard Blade played our soundtrack. Middle Earth, the center of our map, where we went to fill up. New Wave was modern rock, post-punk. Burn down the disco, hang the blessed DJ, because the music that they constantly play says nothing to me about my life. I got the Stone Roses Fool's Gold on import in Middle Earth in 1990 that made me want to go to Manchester. And Morrissey taught me about British poetry. Keats and Yeats are on your side, Wilde is on mine. Middle Earth held the Holy Grail. All the answers were there. Within a few years, we started going to Aaron's Records in Hollywood or other far-off stores, but Middle Earth was my place of birth where it all started, our oasis in the suburban wasteland. It was dark as I drove the point home. By the time I got to UCLA in 1992, those years of close listening taught me to break down language. I've seen this happen in other people's lives, but now it's happening in mine. Lyrics were my liturgy, whether it was Morrissey telling me the Queen is dead. By the way, I've been listening to the Smiths again after the Queen died. Dude said it in 87, right? He knew. He's 35 years ahead of us. The Diggable Planets schooling me on the Black Arts movement, or early 90s hip-hop hipping me to Roy Ayers, P-Funk, and Donald Byrd. The more I heard, the more I learned, the more I explored. There was a light and it never goes out. I dug as deep as I could, and though I was born in Long Beach, my other place of birth was Middle Earth. Man, they closed about 12, 13 years ago, and I just really missed that place. And it was the only place between Long Beach and Melrose that you could find any kind of records. And so later on, we were going to Aaron's and Amoeba and all the cool spots, but Middle Earth was the one when we were like 16, 17. Well, you know, Luis spoke about Tia Chucha's press. And I have a poem about a woman who's been published twice by Tia Chucha's press. I wrote this poem at Louis Vett Resto's book party. And Louis Vett has had two awesome books from Tia Chucha's press, and her latest book as well is on another press. But just it was a great book party, and this is a poem kind of paying tribute to Louis Vett. After 2 years of lockdown, a bunch of friends came down to hear Louis Vett Resto debut her new book of poems, Living on Islands Not Found on Maps. She came strapped in a sleeveless royal blue dress accompanied by gold Nikes. A little later in the reading, she changed into red high heels. Living her life like it's golden, a soulful collection of friends began to filter in the room, sipping champagne early Sunday afternoon, the Holla Holla boys spinning records, making the house quake. The day's energy is camaraderie, celebrating Louis Vett's poetry. One nation under a groove, Sochi is the MC. Their friendship, a love letter to forever Technicolor sisterhood. We're all sensitive people. What's your walk-up song? Bridget Bianca came up to Beyonce. The humidity was palpable. Somebody opened the window. Poetry coming in hot in here. Angelina calls Louis Vett unstoppable. She is indomitable. Sochi riffing on sharing books, long talks, and making sanctuary. There is no judgment, only humor, ritual. Cynthia, the guarded poet, read about El Salvador's militarization, their human rights abuses, and her family's struggle against being invisible. In the in-between, she says, you can live forever. Guidance counselors can't be wrong. Louis Vett shows anything is possible, dancing to hip-hop and bomba when you crawl on the Cross Bronx Expressway to do it your way. She knows there is no sugarcoating. There is only this moment with her favorite hoop earrings, a poem to sing, and why Wonder Woman is invincible. All right. All right, this one is called Dear California, and I wrote this one for my students. I was teaching this class called Natures, and we were really getting into California native plants, and we were getting into, just the future of California. Dear California, you were massive with mountains next to the ocean. Your geography bloomed my imagination. Dear California, I celebrate your coastal cliffs, your wetlands, lava and lumber, your city and wilderness. Dear California, I need your hot springs, your scrublands, waterfalls, sycamores, sagebrush. You are enough for me. Dear California, I love your prehistoric redwoods, Joshua trees, Yosemite, the Salton Sea, your ancient Sierra fault formations, Monterey Peninsula, cedar trees. Dear California, you land of sunshine, plain of little rain, tell me how to reset the spiraling trajectory. Dear California, I want to map your floral biogeography, red foxes, old-growth forests, kangaroo rats, desert hummingbirds, even your chaparral fire ecologies, all the wildflowers, tiger salamanders. Dear California, I want to walk the Modoc Plateau, the South Cascades, the Pitt River and its tributaries, up and down the coastal range, the mini peaks of San Gorgonio, Mount Shasta, San Jacinto, Castle Peaks, Mojave Trails, Anza Borrego. Dear California, I love your biodiversity. California condors, mountain lions, California poppies, steelhead salmon, sea otters, wild horses, king snakes, your headwaters, Lake Tahoe, the Russian River, the San Francisco Bay, the Channel Islands. Anybody ever been to the Channel Islands? Man, right? The Channel Islands are off the hook. West Coast Galapagos. Napa Valley. Dear California, in an age where old monuments are being toppled, will there be a new Colossus? Who are the new icons? Is it time to move on, to let bygones be bygones? Most of all, though, California, I love your people. Every last one in all 58 counties. Some have tried to say the dream is dead. I say it's time to reinvent. Time to dig deep, soul search, do the inner work. How can we address poverty? Luis, your campaign was talking about this. How can we address poverty, inequality, restructure the economy? How about the mindful use of water, let alone long-term sustainability? Dear California, God only knows we have been on the cutting edge. So to meet the challenges ahead, we need to look back, assess, reflect how we can heal the past and move forward. Let's honor the ancestors, be considerate of the indigenous, cultivate native plants, be compassionate to one another. I love you, California. Let's listen to each other. Dear California. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Thank you.
How about that line? Lyrics are my liturgy. Lyrics are my liturgy. Man, thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to introduce Jessica Wilson. Jessica Wilson, yes. Jessica Wilson Cardenas is a third-generation beatnik poet from the lines of Jack Spicer to Paul Vangelisti, and the heartbeat of the visual muse and master poet Moira Simon. In 2009, she founded the Los Angeles Poet Society and began a string of literary events and open mics. Her books of poetry include What Breathes, Raw Kit, Marie Morrison, and most recently, Serious Longing, published by Swan World Press in Paris, France. What do you know about being an international poet like Jessica Wilson? Come on up, all right.
Wow, I'm so excited to be here. And yeah, at the Chucha is one of my favorite places in Earth. There you go. I'm short. But hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to join the Voices of Poetry. This is really amazing. And Mike the Poet rocks. And I can say you inspired me when I was fresh in the scene in LA. I saw Mike the Poet hosting over at the Last Bookstore, and just his warmth and energy was something I was totally vibing with. And I was like, I want to be like Mike. But and it's also great to be here with some friends, with Luis, and happy October. Thought I'd put my little glasses on. So I'm gonna read some pieces from Third Generation Beatnik, and I have copies available if you'd like one. This first poem is called Activist Diary, and this is a fresh one. 10 straight years of activism, and I feel like people won't change for you. Isn't that what it comes down to? People. The general public. Not your people or the people that you thought you knew or those you think you know, but the stranger of the stranger of a stranger that the people really are. They need to change. They need to make a discovery, to listen to themselves, to compete for their own attention, to bring a truth to their reality, to realize their own truth, to know truth from fiction, from what they heard or what they hear, to know that they have power, to know they have power, to know that they have power to wake the fuck up and make real change that only in their lifetime and in mine and in yours can we see any real change take place. So why is it that no one changes? I've given 10 years, fists leading, arms bruised and held high, skin cracked and chiseled, etched tightly over each knuckle, in a protest morning to a protest evening to a pancaked footprint made over the same scorched ground, marked up in tread, people-led. Yet so many more people, vacant, unscathed, unsoothed, hurried along to make absolutely no difference to the cause we've been aching for. And you still try. I will. I will march. I will not calm. But do I know that the people of my time will change? I haven't seen much of it, but I am looking and am noticing that many and many more generations that were born after me are noticing. And they are loud, and they are cranky, and some are self-entitled, but either way, they make noise, these cumbersome teens and beyond. Teams of people who give noise to that squeaky wheel. I have faith that there will be change because of them. It will be some time. Will I like it? I'm uncertain. But there will be change. So I am feeling it from my seat, this bedside where I write, to reflect on my absenteeism when I should be ever so even louder for the protection of my womb and the womb of women, to protect our anonymity, our autonomy, to choose for ourselves in any regard of life, death, religion, protest. Do your own fucking way. I need to be out there, but I am scaffolded down to a skin, one for the school set I serve, and one that is coughing, a coughing veil of the organization I created, and barely a blink for my true self goals, a sheer blink. Then there is the stem of myself for my children, which I want to give. I am beyond myself in this veil. I want to protest age because it is creeping, and each day I live, I know I am dying. I need to help my kids grow. I know I need them to know that they are mine, a legacy, like Frankenstein was to his, my bloodline to protect, because they are the legacy to my existence. This veil plays with us like a game. I give into it daily, knowing better, and still I keep playing. Is that madness or simply a way? So will people change? Detachment is the key. Oil them up to detach from their blatant disregard to your cause and leech it up their sides. They will change once you tell them, and tell them, and tell them, and yawn. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I've been reflecting, it's been some time, and I'm like, damn, I need to be out there, and also, just for my sisters and for myself and for, there's so many things to be, to stand up for and to share voice for. Yet we're all, I'm spread thin, and I want to save some of that for me. So I'm like, but those youngsters, they are loud and cranky and self-entitled and all that good stuff, and I know they're not gonna shut up. So there will be change. It's coming. Like I said, I don't know if I'm gonna like what happens, but something's gonna change. Okay. This is a piece I wrote for the lineage, my mujeres. It's called malas. I come from a line of malas, women who took no shit, were cranked out tough as the terrain. Arizona desert, Sonoran desert. Malas who set aside compassion for common sense and hard work, tending the flock with tireless hands, swollen feet. Malas whose children were never coddled but made secure, kept fed, clothed, sheltered for a lifetime. Malas who knew a man could never be kept unless tied to the land and his belly fed. These are the malas of my lineage, a heritage cooked up in heavy ollas, laid on the stove, fanned out in Arizona air. Stiff, heavy-boned, hips and thighs to leverage more weight. Bandita gunslingers had nothing on them, daughters of the earth, red clay hands, Sonoran eyes, an empire to be dreamt, surpassing faith. But malas were never dreamers. If they did, it was tucked in a fond memory of youth. They rubbed salt and ground meat into their eyes, see the new dawn. Up early with cocks and crows who cast blessings about the entire nest of land. Malas act on necessity and spare no time. Seasoned fillets burned as callous fingers pluck feathers, separate bones, tie down carts, oil the wheels. These are the malas who traded seed and soil, water and light. Earth women, rugged, plain, crowned by sweat from the sun. Mala Santa. Gracias. Thank you. All right. Excellent. Okay. This is a little short one. It has my little graphic there. There's you in the middle, right? It's called Be in Yourself. Skin in and around the hidden and deep, sharing and exposed, in a place only time remembers. So, right in there. All right. Let's see. And I try to be optimistic. Most of the time I'm optimistic. But, yeah, reality is, real, right? There's no, you can't keep, you can stay positive, but hey, after a while, it's just face that reality. Okay. Yeah, this is more upbeat. This is Prism. And this was inspired by LA Valley College, just kind of hanging out in their library and just checking all the people coming and going. Yeah, Valley, woo, woo. The Monarchs, right? Prism, cascade of color, generations after, before. The start of matriculation, dreams of higher revelation, beyond the normality of just being, breathing or beating of where we all began. I see unity in this prism, light glaring into my throat, a voice for more, a voice to plunge into pastimes of lives more than mine, more than what I have seen. It is immeasurable. Makes me want to scream higher for the dreams of all reality to come to be. I infiltrate the circle, tuck myself into a knapsack and dance under the joy. No solitude, a collective self that will resonate and sing beyond the reasons of understanding who we can be or become within season. We are a collective body, masses of other faces of comfort, that grace, the holy life, one being to nurture and penetrate without charity or solace, camaraderie, motherly. Minds of menace and laughter, minds planted with decision to reach beyond the vision of alignment, reaching beyond the chosen mind, creating a harmony of our otherness, togetherness, reaching to declare our lives. We stand like trees, knees unbuckled, less savage than times before us, teetering heavy to shift the weight of the planet. Forces for good, extreme light that will serenade our history with the galaxy of our faces, placards placed carefully into the earth walls of our existence. A unity chosen, a theory revealed, that peace steps with careful feet in the gleeful light, karma in charity, plenty of passion. We shine precise, beam in reality. Thank you. Thank you so very much. And check Ag. I do have copies of Third Generation Beatnik. If you're interested, $10. Come see me. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jessica. I'm such a big fan of like the home plate to home plate, like beginning to end. And that first line, I come from a line of malas, like dang, right? And then to come back with malas santas to end it is just, right? And the idea of to know they have power, but the power builds with each of the 3 times you said it. Thanks so much for sharing that. It's my pleasure to introduce a colleague of mine. Blessed, lucky, privileged to be able to work with Jeremy Green.
Feel the same about you.
Hey, I appreciate that. Yeah. Call up his bio here because there's a lot to say. The word for Jeremy definitely is contagious. I mean, enthusiasm, not contagious, right? Enthusiasm to meet him is to know him. It's to know passion, to know energy. Works so well with the students, and is just a great addition to our school. He's also so Mr. Jeremy Dwayne Green is a school psychologist and poet, currently living and working in the Sacramento region, 916. In his spare time, he writes, records, and performs poetry and rap, which has been featured in both Sacramento and Shanghai. We're talking Shanghai, China. Talk about international, Sacramento and Shanghai literary circles. Though previously living and working in Shanghai, Mr. Green strongly connects with his familial roots, firmly planted in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His works can be found on the following platforms. Find him on Bandcamp. Gmile is the connection. Gmile is the connection. That's Gmile. Also the connection for YouTube. And he's done a TED Talk. And you can find that on YouTube. The TEDx Talk is called The Transformative Power of Rejection. Please put your hands together, Mr. Jeremy Green.
You know, when you read stuff like that, it reminds me like, damn, I've done quite a bit, man. Lord have mercy. Because, like, I'm reading all, like, the featured, performers, and I'm like, man, you ain't measuring up at all, man. And then when you read stuff like that, I'm like, you're doing all right, man. You're doing all right. So, how y'all feeling tonight? I'm honored to be in this space. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Pete, for telling me about this. And, it's a blessing to be here, man. I feel moved by the ancestors and spirits one time. So I'm going to read a couple pieces. As you might tell with the, little je ne sais quoi I got, my family comes from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, though I grew up mostly in the Sacramento region. Lived overseas in Shanghai for 2 years, did school psychology at an international school, Shanghai American School. Shout outs to them, Shanghai Meiguo Shui Shao. So I learned a little Indian, little Mandarin when I was out there and stuff like that, but the pronunciation is still lacking a little bit. And so, so shout outs to all my people up there, all the black staff up in, that district I work at, upstate, if you will. And then shout out to my boy Kyle. I had a friend of mine pass away recently, so shout outs to him. This is going to be in his memory and stuff like that. So I'm kind of a romantic, so I'm going to write, I'm going to read something I wrote about a moment in time in Shanghai. This is called A Saturday Night in Shanghai. Yeah, and I get all real low and stuff like that. Yeah, buddy, yeah. You got to know I'm a fool. I get distracted easily, so that's why the students get along with me. All right. You are drinking your third sidecar of the night. I'm rubbing my eyes raw. I tell you that there's something in my eyes. You tell me it's the dream material. I think it's maybe your cigarette smoke. Still, all I see is you. On this rooftop bar atop the 92nd floor of a high-end hotel, the waters and numerous people become fault lines from this high up. On the bun of Shanghai, all I see is you swaying to the wind, humming like the red and gold flags affixed atop this rooftop bar, reminding me the United States isn't the only one who owns the patriotic. Both you and these flags are the pride of your country. Still, all I see is you. But the moon does seem a little mad at the Pearl Tower's lights as it waits behind a cloudy curtain, waiting for man-made illumination to disappear over a city in the midst of electric intercourse. Your dress is condensation, gripping and moving across your figure. I smell your Burberry perfume, I feel your jaded charms, and I imagine condensation becoming evaporation. You don't want me to go back to the United States, though. You tell me this in English while also telling the bartender in Chinese that we need more drinks. And the dream material has me seeing myself being your trailing spouse here in Shanghai if you'd let me. But trust me, even in this secular land, the ghost still haunts my blood. I'm seeing visions of tomorrow now. Visions of disease, visions of protests, visions of death, visions of being attacked by lawyers and MAGA supporters alike because I'm a black man and not, as you say, a silly Magoren American. When I left home, some people were still trying to weaponize the knee of Kaepernick, whom I resembled in both hairstyles and complexion. I bet you those same people would see a knee as patriotic if it was used as a weapon to silence my own. You asked me, where did you just go now? As you notice the distance within me. The temperature has dropped low enough to pierce my jacket as your warmth moves closer to me. Just then, it begins to slightly snow during this December moment. That was rare back then too, what? You say it is rare for snow to land here as your cigarette smoke also falls atop Shanghai. Where did you go just now, Woda Pongyo, my friend? Nowhere really, I replied. I was just wondering, where do we go from here? Thank you. Somewhat autobiographical, but I won't tell you what sparks. So this is a little bit of a story from when I was a kid visiting some family in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We'd go back every winter, summer, sometimes with spring. And, so this is about a situation when I was a kid and my little naivete and, just, love and love because I love love. Valentine's Day is my favorite holiday. Surprise, surprise. I'm going to say that proudly because a lot of people hate Valentine's Day, but I love love. If there's one day to love somebody, please, 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 please do it on February the 14th. And my favorite singer is Prince, too. Yeah. This is called Interracial. When I was about 16, outside of a local movie theater in the state of Pelicans, Gumbo, and Sudden Storms, I heard a voice of Southern distinction that made me turn back. I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana that day, visiting family. Myself, my Aunt Gidget, cousin Brittany, and her cousin on her dad's side, no blood relation, went to see The Nutty Professor 2. At least I think it was The Nutty Professor 2. It's been so long, I don't even remember. But, we went to go see, I believe, The Nutty Professor 2. While waiting in line, I heard a voice made me turn around, and I proceeded to see a girl my age or maybe slightly older who looked as if she smelled as vanilla and cinnamon. I gazed at her, heart aflutter, only to be shot back into existence. A voice rang out. "Don't you look at her. You're going to get yourself in trouble for that," said my cousin's cousin. "Don't you be looking at them white girls," she said, with a hint of realism and unseasoned blackberry jam. You see, while I was practicing my California blues during my childhood, my pops tried to convince me not to view love as black and white. For a California kid whose parents ventured west to get away from impoverished stress and generational traumas, I always saw love as a sort of pink cashmere. You see that Prince reference, Pink Cashmere? It's one of my favorite songs. It's one of my favorite songs. Though sometimes blue love was never black and white, even if my skin could match the image of Louisiana soil after August tropical storms, I always saw love as beyond social construct. I remember a crush I once had in Folsom Middle School who was mixed much like Louisiana Creoles tend to be, because my mama Creole, telling me how her white daddy would never have accepted me. Funny enough, here I stand 16 plus years later, a black man with the white man's education, becoming far more recognizable than her white daddy ever was. Your daddy is black with envy, I wish I had said back then. But on that night in Louisiana, 16-year-old me just had a few things to sing to my cousin's cousin. I am black, I am worldly. I will paint this world in pink cashmere and blackberry jam. Those were the words I said 16 plus years ago to my cousin's cousin. Thank you all so much. So I just got a couple more, and then I'm going to, skedaddle back to my seat. I really appreciate the love, y'all. So, this was written at the start of the pandemic when I left Shanghai, China, or when I left for Shanghai, China. I was leaving like a pretty up and down relationship, So it's funny how, for a moment in time, you got all this love for each other, and then, life happens. Like we're talking about, reality happens, right? And so even with this world-changing event, it's amazing how, even that can't bring two people back together. This is called Unsown. I'm sure you work today, whether from home or your office situated between grocery items and sunflowers. I'm sure you work today. Today, I'm sure the strains of capitalism shaped your worries into show tunes and fake smiles to meet end-of-the-year goals. The show must go on. Since everyone was checking in with loved ones at the start of this pandemic mess, I tried to be one of the cool kids and check in with you. In truth, it's also because I can't let silence stay still. Silence is the answer. Silence is the conclusion. Silence is the proof that love and God leave you during a pandemic to walk drunk in silence that now befalls the streets of your foundation, Chicago. Silence is the alchemy of heartbreak, the alchemy in how I left you to find me, and then he found you before I found me, and then you found yourself in the comforts of him who is as dust allows you to settle in the aftermath of us. Still, I wonder, if there was so much hate, why did you embrace me at that barbecue a couple months later, after the silence? The panic wraps around me like the daughter we once imagined having. She'd have your eyes and my hair as our histories blend like the milk inside of her bowl upon finishing her favorite cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I have some wild, vivid dreams. Some never imagined that such beauty could come from us. The pandemic was supposed to be new yet familiar and bring together divergent forces towards a common good. However, much like every prediction made by experts and the anxious, only the devastation has consistently manifested. I guess it's similar between us. Only the silence continues to be interjected into these colors of my shelter-in-place mornings. I guess I should take solace in at least that constant in these ever shape-shifting days and times. I just hope that you're okay. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, these things are kind of a little, like you were talking about, therapeutic, right, with the trauma and stuff, so, trying to keep it together. I got one more for y'all. Yeah, I appreciate it, yo. So this is brand new. And Pete, I kind of told you about this situation. But this isn't about where we work. This is about where I work, if you get my drift. Just trying to, make sure I watch myself. I got to go back in a couple weeks. Don't want them, being like, I saw you on that video, Jeremy. I heard what you said about me, Jeremy. That's why you never say no names and any, you got to use aliases to protect the innocent, even though they're not that innocent. This is called the blackness. The minute I act different than the joy I present in such predominantly white spaces is the minute that I'm reminded of my blackness. They then label me mad, aggressive, angry, all sorts of adjectives they never use to describe their corrupt, old, white, and overfed on-power overlords. When you bring me in the room alone to either prove you are right or to have me right my supposed wrongs, I feel the pressure to perform again. Boom, boom. I have to snap back into the role of making you feel comfortable, because the truth will cost me more than just being somewhat free. But don't you dare shush me again. Your microviolence ain't worth my silence. It's worth my truth. This is the truth that is worth its weight in black gold. It's tough knowing that your work won't fight for you. Numerous student lives I've tried to save in this work as a black school psychologist. Numerous lives I've helped to drive in this work as a black school psychologist, which is overrepresented with black and brown spirits in terms of special education and beyond. Just a little bit of facts for you. Yet, where is my work to speak up against the threats people like me are always on the guard for? How are they watching out for folks like me who may be accused of being a theorist because I speak critically of the history of race? Where were they when I had to watch images of a black man that looked like one of my uncles as he called out for his mama while taking his final last breath? Never mind my trauma that comes from losing a cousin who has the same first and last name as you, Jeremy D. Wayne Green. Shout outs to Jeremy Bernard Green. To gun violence in East Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Never mind all that trauma as my work wants me to be a good boy. My work rather sit down with far-right media outlets all because of undercover hit pieces that they do to catch progressives because they feel that they're somehow anti-American. The same far-right media who run counter to my work's stated beliefs about how our diversity is our strength. Crock is shit. All because of the fears of bad PR, knowing that the real bad PR is all the money that these supposed educational leaders launder into their own checks. The only time they care about me is when I dissent. The only time they want me in the forefront is to protect their neck. Yeah, you were talking some rap earlier, so I had to, spit the Wu-Tang Clan poet, Mike. You want me to facilitate these meetings when it's your fear of the backlash. This is the only time you ever defer to the soul of this black man. Thank you all so much. Appreciate y'all. Much love.
Wow. What can you say? I think, Jeremy had that question, where do we go from here? That I think it was about love, but I think that goes through all of his poetry and a lot of the people here tonight. Where do we go from here? And, just the idea of the moment in time, those fault lines, man-made illumination. And I think I'll leave tonight for sure thinking about the image of the knee that you painted. Thanks so much for sharing all of that incredible work with us. Another educator is F. Douglas Brown. Yes. Humble man, but there is a lot to say about him. He's the author of 2 poetry collections, Icon and 0 to 3, winner of the 2013 Cave Canem Poetry Prize, selected by none other than U.S. Poet Laureate Tracy K. Smith. He also co-authored with poet Jeffrey Davis, Begotten, a chapbook of poetry as part of the Floodgate Poetry Series. Doug is an educator for over 20 years. He currently teaches English and African American poetry at Loyola High School of LA. Yep, an all-boys Jesuit school. He is both a Cave Canem and Kundiman Fellow and was selected by Poets and Writers as one of their 10 notable debut poets of 2014. His poems have appeared in the Academy of American Poets, the PBS NewsHour, the Virginia Quarterly, Bat City Review, the Chicago Quarterly Review, the Sugar House Review, Cura Magazine, and Muslim Magazine. He is co-founder and curator of Unfadeable, F-A-D-E, the Requiem for Sandra Bland, a quarterly reading series examining restorative justice through poetry as a means to address racism. When he is not teaching, writing, or with his children, Isaiah, Olivia, and Simone, he is busy DJing in the greater Los Angeles area. F. Douglas Brown.
I know I sent you the short version. Thank you. I'm giving it up to all y'all here. So I got a DJ tonight. I'm going to ask you guys to help me get on beat here. So can y'all get a snap for me? So I'm going to go one time for Voices of California. Hey, give up some love for them. One time for Tia Chucha. Give up some snaps for Tia Chucha. One time for the Nervous Ghost Press and Chills at Will podcast for bringing us all together. One time for all the poets who already blessed the stage. One time for everybody here. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you, Peter and Jesse, for bringing me up here. I appreciate it. You guys always give so much love. So I'm going to read a few pieces here. This is called, this is a beautiful place. I love this. I should have said one time for my press siblings, Mike, Bridget, and Tracy. We are all part of Writ Large Press at different times. and one of Writ Large Press's co-founders, Chuan Choi. Luis published his first book. So it is like being home here so much. So give up some love for that. I'm gonna tell you, it's not sacrilege here and be in a bookstore to let you know that every now and then I will throw a book across the room. Any of y'all throw books? You throw books? Yep. You read a book that's so damn good, and it's like, what did I just read? I'm not reading no more. Flip, and it's going across the wall. This poem is In That Spirit. This is called Mic Check, How to Read a Book of Elegies. Testing, friends, testing 1, 2. Dearly beloved, go to the notes first and journey back to places when words erupted or slept underneath something off the page. Never apologize for a nearby TV's nonsense, up and away from anything as the screen thickens, time tumbling toward time. The display brings fish across blue, which might mean screensaver or how deep this book's work sinks into you. If you're in tears or in dance or draped by your kin, Mama's gold necklace, the one you wanted but was never in line to get, if those links now suddenly possible, bet you toss the bound thing and toward a wall. Mic test 1, 2, oh, interposed motion, stumbling blue across the room. Did y'all know a book of poems is both the thrust aiding a bird's ascent and thoughts wrapped heavy on your skin? Other times, matches, wild tips, and hell potential. Damn this good as devil. Damn this good that spirals into mom's later years. Line after line of complaints and demands. On every page, she's asking you to clean her shit when she misses the toilet. It's all echo, bouncing off hard-headed tendencies. And ain't that the reason why you launched it across the room in the first place? I swear, when a book loses its safety nets or atomizes to mirror your life unraveling, flight becomes better than fear. Folks, when you hear the book thud, that beat rains a song of reminding your sister did reach out. Your sister took your hand to usher mom to that up yonder light. If anybody asks, tell them you found mom in a book. Tell them she was making a new life, one without a blood source, so you can move on. So this next poem, it's a little long poem, and this will be my last one because it's so long. It's called Residue Love Song, and it's inspired by this Zimbabwean visual artist Mofat Takadiwe. And what his work does is he takes all of the Western trash that gets dumped on his country, and he beautifies it, and mostly e-waste, a lot of keyboards and computers, and he weaves it into these beautiful, beautiful tapestry-like pieces, and they like huge, hanging on the wall. You know, a lot of what Mofat does is he takes things that were once waste and he beautifies it, and he gets it out of his country and sells it back to the West, right? So take your trash back. But I grew up in a place in San Francisco called Hunters Point, very much like the Watts of San Francisco. And Hunters Point, you know, a lot of us get treated as waste. And I had a brother, this is coming on the anniversary of his death. My stepbrother, when I was a freshman in high school, passed away. And a lot of people was like, oh, his life was wasted, and you grow up kind of thinking that. And then, you know, seeing Mofat's work made me really think, like, no, this brother's life did not get wasted. This is called Residue Love Song. This is for my brother, LeGrandi. You'll hear me talk about some, like, command shift keys, because he uses all these keyboards and stuff. Command F. Back to the days when we sat on a blanket, perpetual Golden Gate Park, in a perpetual 74-degree dream loop. Your favorite type of day. Mom, your packed dips, your Sunday snacks, music somewhere close to your liberation. Command A, select all that is my youth, my minimal words compared to a body of new hair and tart stank. Command A, my sudden desire for clothes to match my shoes. And boy, didn't I just buy you some new shoes? What to save or share when I am the boy learning the hard lessons of his body. When I am the boy outgrowing a living arrangement. When I am the boy on tiptoes, palms reaching up or sideways, touching all the walls of our tiny crib. Close the extra work of forgetting. Close what we decide to trash, even when stories, memories pile up as heaps of toothbrushes, tubes, spray cans, the remnants of our worlds, our consumptions and do-overs gathered in mounds of toxins. Take the traces of our grit and recycle our human topographies as sparkle. Reshape and sow. Reshape and sow. Let us gather to call it family or friendship. Transfigurations, not transgressions, not garbage, not waste. And what of waste? Redo every resource a community offers, even getting knocked out by a dude named Jughead while his brother Popeye watched. A couple of for reals who didn't take to fools clowning on their names. Just when I thought the streets would protect, I was knocked out. Blurred vision, and these boys a stride away from their own knockdown. Since then, I have known 4 sets of brothers gone, gun wounds, wind and hearsay, velvet plume and dust. Speak to me and not of those kids, Mom, you said, serves you right. Over and over, speaking to the old guard of church folks, landladies and grandparents, speaking to bosses and supervisors, you said, I need help to save my son because the world wants to undo him, because the world is the world, and I can't be everywhere. Command O, what of waste, or what of a mother's methods too? Layers of white plastics, our consumptions and ruffled memories, cleaned and sterilized and girdled by globes of green globs of love and sacrifice, green crusted promise and pain. Command A, speaking to me, Mom, you said, I have eyes everywhere. New tab for his name, a little witch god himself. Tab for its mouthful, its witness, and a never worry smile. Tab for all things LeGrande, all the dance party appearances, the dance-offs on TV 20. Tab for any lovelies who drape around his pink collar pop. New tab for a swish and bank shot and a through the lane reverse dunked after being bitched for missing practice. Tab, sneer, and high fives. Tab, thunder, lightning, LeGrande. Tab, a crowd of all love. Command Z. Have I said stepbrother? Have I said allure? Iris and pupils, we watched. We all loved his spacewalk. Undo what comes next so the game can play out. Dream loop, slow motion, cheers as black keys of muffled typing, clicks superimposed over laughter, undo all cliches. When memory is a lint trap full of ugly, when it goddamns you as a whale for a boy so pitch perfect pretty, the chants still glow. LeGrande, someone shot LeGrande. Command Z, Command Z. Command Z. Speak to me, space bar. You said, don't let me catch you in the streets. Speaking to me since birth, through childhood and rebellion, through marriage, toward grandchildren and hometowns, graduations and holidays. It's our last Thanksgiving, and I'm telling you to eat. I'm already speaking from a dimly lit hospital room, and then you wake, and then your grave. Can you hear me, Mom? I'm back to offer my thanks. Space bar. One brother gone, while another brother picked up any pieces of white and green gems that might have been dropped. You, Mom, the forever pack rat, tucked keepsakes in your coffin, taped or sewn artifacts of a community, a tapestry of helping hands assisting your white sleep. Command S, one brother gone, while another brother washed your face and dressed you after you died. Warm water so you didn't take any complaints with you to the plane you always prayed about. In this way, restored, renewed as you enter the afterlife. Your body wrapped in white. In this way, you have emptied yourself into your children. Our safe passage as we still ride across a city full of rival boundaries. But traces of community riches ride with us. Brilliant bodies of pearls or moonstones or milk beads or opals. In this way, your blood extends and has reshaped into so many gorgeous lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. You imagine being his student? You imagine how lucky you would be to be his student? Not even fair that some of us get to have teachers like F. Douglas Brown. Thank you. There are a lot of tears in the place after that one, myself included. Appreciate that so much. The idea of the muse, I know I'm talking to Doug that he's done some great stuff. Help me with the pronunciation. Ekphrasis? Ekphrasis, his work with Jacob Lawrence and Frederick Douglass paintings. Just art begetting art is something that Doug is just incredible at, among many other things. And I love that image of throwing the books against the wall, throwing the books on the floor as a teacher. Thank you so much. How many of you have had your name used on The Simpsons? Well, that gentleman in the red shirt here that is laughing. Yep. Okay. It was 10 words. And he can choose to tell a story if he wants, but there's a Simpsons episode where the last name of the student is after the great Adolfo Guzman Lopez. You've heard him on, what's that? Inspired? Here's his bio. Adolfo Guzman Lopez is a poet and journalist. He hosted and reported the recent podcast, The Forgotten Revolutionary, and that does him absolutely no justice. He will do some justice to himself. Welcome. Come on up.
Where is it? There it is. Okay, so this is the latest. I'm really into. There's nothing for me like the collective voice, and I got hooked on it in the mid '90s with a series that I put together called Taco Shop Poetry, which became Taco Shop Poets, and we did a lot of readings, toured, etc. And then when I came to LA in 2000, I did a series called Spine of Califas, different people, similar concept. And then this is the latest group of people who have had the trust and generosity in an idea that I've pitched them to come together. So Project 1521, there are 2 copies over there in the corner. So if you want to buy it, is a book that came out earlier this year. It's called Tlaquilix. Earlier, somebody said that we were going to hear from Luis. We needed to hear from Luis, and I haven't heard from Luis. Well, Luis wrote the foreword to this book, so let's hear from Luis. It's a badass forward, man. You broke down 500 years of colonialism in 3 pages, 4 pages. Really good, really good. I'll just read a couple paragraphs. Poetry and the American Holocaust, generating beauty and truth to confront the ugly and the lies. In your hands is poetry emanating from a deeply disturbing original sin. The conquest and domination of Mexico, Central America, and what we call Latin America. Can verse unveil and redeem such ruin? Can it guide us to reimagine ourselves on our long and blood-ridden journey to comprehensive human liberation and dignity? I believe in poetry. Poets and writers from the United States, Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Chile, and other countries have long proven the power of imagery, language, and story to do exactly that. And if you buy the book, you can read the rest. I'm going to get my bottle of water. So exactly 10 years ago, I'll paint a picture. Location, charter high school in San Pedro, 10th grade English class. The year 2012, I think it was, no, 2011. I think it was the fall of 2011. This crazy English teacher invites me to talk to his 10th grade class. And so I'm going to talk to them. What am I going to say to them? Hey, I go back into my taco shop poetry kind of, bag of tricks. We used to do an opening where we workshopped Somos, we are, right? Somos, right? And then we would open like that, the whole group of us coming from different parts. So I did that. I did that with these 10th graders. I was just going to read you a little bit of what these are 10th graders. These are 10th graders down there. A little bit of everything. This is San Pedro, right? We are the new age. We are the inspired. We are sparks. We are passion. We are the students. We are one. We are the athletes. We are the smile of our parents. We are the environment. We are the colors in a rainbow. We are the beads in a bracelet. We are the ones that want to move ahead. We are the one in so many. We are just like everyone else. We are a community. We are the voices that cannot be ignored. We are the most spirited. We are the innocent. We are the neglected. We are our own sense of nostalgia. We are the tight grip on an adult's conscience. 10th graders. What? How old is that? 10th grade. What is that? 15. We are the pen that reveals our own stories. We are the sun peeking through the clouds. We are the raindrops that cause the flood. So that's where I met Peter Real 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago. Thank you for that invite. Really appreciate it. And man, it's been great seeing you, just everything that you're doing. Congratulations, and congratulations for bringing us together as a collective voice. Yeah. So I was born in Mexico City. I grew up in Tijuana and National City. Went to, grew up in a Mexican Filipino neighborhood, blue collar neighborhood, but then went to schools in kind of the in Pacific Beach in San Diego, which because that's where my parents work, so that's where they put me in school. So I've got this kind of weird sense of identity of like being a beach kid, you know, kind of like Jerry Lopez surfer in the 70s type of thing, riding my GNS Fiberflex skateboard down Mission Boulevard, the boardwalk, you know, and then going home in the afternoons on the weekends, kind of trying to stay away from Old Town National City guys and that sort of thing, right? Dodging that. And all to say that when I came to Los Angeles, you know, a new chapter of my life opened, right? And this is something that I wrote. As I've had the privilege as a reporter, man, I get paid to go out and write and talk to people and be nosy and curious and, you know, pry, you know, and that's not really in my nature. So it's, you know, so it's taken a bit. This is called Vine a Los Angeles. The eagle perched on the cactus called me to Los Angeles. The Templo Mayor lays buried here in my city, Mexico City. Jaguar heads of volcanic stone became cornerstones for colonial palaces, became podiums for politicians, became baptism wells for El Nuevo Mexicano. In my new city, adobe forts became foundations for post-war tract homes as far as the eye can see. They sway like Kansas wheat fields. It's here, the California city, buried under the oil well city, buried under the Zoot Suit city, buried under the Dunbar city. Orthodox shuls under Brooklyn Avenue sonidero speakers. The East Side Minaret blasts narco corridos. The East Side Minaret blasts cri cri. The East Side Minaret blasts Cross the river over forearms graffiti tattooed. The frogs sleep under the concrete. The rows of grapevines sleep under the concrete. The boom boom from the mask, the vex, and the moratorium sleep under the concrete. Use your hands, dig deep. Use your nose, dig deep. Use your mouth, dig deep. Use your heart, dig deep. Sister Jessica reminded me that when I was about 19, I heard on like late night public radio, Gregory Corso's poem, A Requiem for the American Indian. And that just blew my mind, right? Because there was a lot of stuff coming at you and images and, you know, it was beat, but it was also, I feel it was like Dada also. It was like taking at lots of stuff and trying to make patterns and everything like that, right? So that was an LA poem. Brother Mike and I were talking about how poetry of place is very important for us, and I'm sure for lots of other people, right? That we're constantly like navigating our memories of where we are, and then the memories of those who came before us, right? Who are under this asphalt, who are in the mountains, in the scrub, and up there, and not just of people, you know, 50, 60, 100 years ago, but people 600 years ago, 1,000 years ago here, right? That's what we're constantly, as writers, trying to grasp, right? Trying to grasp and then put down and find the words for that. So I found myself, so that was an LA poem. This is a Mexico City poem. I wrote this, maybe it was about 10 years ago. Also, Pulque? Anyone know pulque? Okay, pulque is the juice that's extracted. If you ever, I've never seen it, but I've heard it described. So it's the juice extracted from the maguey, right? The magueys that are used to eventually make tequila. But this juice that's extracted has for hundreds, 1,000 years, millennia, indigenous people, have drank it, and it's fermented, so it's alcoholic. So I found, so 10, 11 years ago, I found myself in a pulqueria on Insurgentes in Mexico City at a poetry reading, right? So we did a poetry reading and so the reason I bring up the beats and Gregory Corso is that this has a little bit of that. Para poetas pulqueros. Pulcro, pulque, po, prendió, plath, perception, pellicer, pulpo, porque, parquet, Puebla, Pittsburgh, partake. Pabst, putrid, pollster, private, Pinsky, pa, pe, pi, po, pu, pims, pantimedias, pill, Parmenides, pinto, prosa, poca, purple, pinch, pavor, por pati, posgrado, pulque, Pepe Pulquero, Priscila Pulquera, pediatra, pulquera, poetas pulqueros probablemente perdidos, pist, pubes, pensativas, pisto, propaganda, purim, penca, prophet, plegaria, Pacific past polka, potbelly, punch, padrino, prodigal panch portrays pubescence, pulque past prime, precious, patrulla Palestine, pulque parmesan, pulque Prokofiev, pulque proton, pulque Proust, partidario, perredista, pedorrero, pulque politics, pulque psicodélico, pulque paradox, pulque para póstumos, pulque para peleas, pulque para posteridad, pulque para pronunciación, pulque para princesa, pulque para pureza, pulque para paisano y pulque para paz.
Thank you so much. The podcast that Adolfo did recently was about the great list, and obviously Adolfo is one of those who continues to educate, who continues in the great tradition of those people spreading the word and on social progress. I'm amazed that you remember that from years ago, from those 10 years ago. I remember it so strongly. Was so blessed to have you in my classroom, and as were the students. And I love, he gave an fairly open prompt, but it came up, such great work came from that. It ended up being part of Juan Felipe Herrera, the poet laureate, made the longest poem, the biggest poem in the world, and that ended up becoming part of it. I remember one of the lines, this girl who never spoke, barely ever spoke, her line was basically, "We are the light, somos la luz." And she gave this lecture on la luz, how it means, to give birth in Spanish, and just double meanings, and it was just like, everyone was like, whoa. That all came from that great prompt, so thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that work. Yeah. Made a note to myself to look up the Corso poem for sure. Man. Next up, as we continue, we have Bridget Bianca. Yes. Okay. All right. My apologies. Bridget Bianca is a poet and professor from South Central Los Angeles. Her first book of poetry, B/Trouble, was released by Writ Large in 2020. You can find her online at Bridget Bianca, that's all one word, BRIDGETTE, Bianca, and bridgetbianca.com. What an honor to have you tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. First, I want to say I am honored to be here for this event. When first reached out to me about this, I thought I was being invited to come and see the incredible poets. And I was like, just to be clear, am I being invited to read or just to come and be in the audience, because either way, I want to be there, right? I'll take the trip. So I'm happy to be one of you in the space, period. And I'm so happy to be one of you in California bringing poetry to people. As an educator, and as many of you all as educators, I am so excited to be able to teach your work and to talk about this time period and to tell students for, 30 years more, maybe if I make it that long, that I was around when Lizbeth was writing, when Jessica was writing, and Doug was writing, and Mike was writing. That's an honor to me, right? So thank you for having me. So thank you for also letting me come and represent South Central today in the house. Okay, it took me an hour to get here. It was an hour well spent. But I'm really excited. So I'm going to share just a couple pieces with you that are all dedicated to South Central. The first one I'm going to share is one I haven't read in a long time. I wrote it for the LA Lit Crawl. The theme was music, and it was funny because it was all about LA music, and no one else was talking about gangster rap. And so I was so glad that I wrote a poem about gangster rap. So here we go. This is my longest title of a poem ever. The title is, "To the older white woman in my MFA workshop who pitied me because she believed my poetry was influenced by rap music and my time spent growing up in the hood, and that's why I was so angry and wrote so often of death." I couldn't shorten it. It had to be the full thing. Did you know that me and my West Coast gangster rap were born the year Ice-T rapped? 6 a.m, police at my door, fresh need to squeak across the bathroom floor, out my back window, I make an escape, didn't even get a chance to grab my old school tape. The year was 1986. In that same year, NWA formed, and by the next year, I took my first steps while Eazy-E was cruising down the street in his 6'4". We were the birth of a new era. I didn't know that yet, but you, dear white woman, you and Tipper Gore knew that. We were the birth of a new terror. I remember when I sat crisscross applesauce in front of my console TV and watched Rodney King being beaten. I didn't have to ask my parents why the police would hurt that man because Ice Cube already told me a couple of years before that a young hustler got it bad because I'm brown. And every boombox blasted "fuck the police" and "cop killer" until every burned out storefront and lot looked like a mother's wailing mouth. And when we went back to school after the fire that time, our kindergarten teachers didn't ask us how we felt or call in any special counselors to help us with our feelings. They just stepped over the charred remains of our innocence and turned up the alphabet song. Where were you, my dear Caucasian critic, to warn my parents that if I learned to read and write, that one day their daughter will become a poet and scare you every Thursday night? In between dodgeball and hand games on the playground, we sing-songed remixes to Snoop and Dre's hits like "Rolling Down the Street, Eating Cookies, Sipping on Low-Fat Milk," to the melody of Gin and Juice. And sometimes a car would cruise by with the radio on and we'd try to dance like the girls in the music videos for songs like Snoop Dogg's "What's My Name" and "Keep Them Heads Ringing." Even though all the girls were light-skinned, all red lips and lokes and door knocker earrings instead of our bollies and barrettes and brown. So cool and laid back like the big cousins we all swore we had, who could hang out on Crenshaw or go to the Fox Hills Mall by themselves on the bus or behind the wheel of a Jeep. Had to be a Jeep like Moesha from Lamert Park. Braids in the wind, bumping Brandy's "I Wanna Be Down" and "I Get Around" by Pac and Digital Underground, like we knew what any of that meant. Yeah, I grew up on fairy tales like everybody else, but if you know like I know, you know there's no greater tale than Warren G and Nate Dogg on a clear black night with a clear white moon. Or Cube on a day like one of those fly dreams when he didn't have to even see a berry flashing those high beams, no helicopter looking for a murder, and 2 a.m. he got the fat burger. My most prized possession was a cassette tape of Ahmad's back in the day, where he sampled Teddy Pendergrass and laid out a coming-of-age story that reminded me that no matter what the media told me, black kids in South Central LA were children. We were still children, and we would indeed grow up and look back on these days as the good old days. That this is how we do it would still kick off every party and barbecue, Montel reminding us that South Central does it like nobody does. And our parents still love California Love and play Summertime in the LBC. And the high school band still play Fuck Them Other Hitters because I'm down for my hitters at every game and pep rally. And adults don't get mad because it's their jam too. And indeed, it's still nothing but a G thing. But don't fret, my alabaster angel. It wasn't all who banging and dope slanging. It was funky and soulful too. Have you ever done the electric slide and the beat goes on by the Whispers next to your uncle who thinks his mustache makes him an honorary member of the group? And the auntie who swears she was on Soul Train dancing next to Jody Watley before she sang A Night to Remember with Sylmar? Have you listened to somebody reminisce about going to high school with the members of the Fifth Dimension or Rolls Royce while Wishing on a Star or Car Wash played in the background? Was your economics teacher's favorite student a girl named Yolanda before she became Yo-Yo and did that Bunny and Clyde thing with Ice Cube? Before O'Shea was bused from Washington High to Woodland Hills so he wouldn't grow up to be a menace to society? Well, I did. And I'm not ashamed to say that some of the greatest literature starts with the opening notes of Still Dre or a P-Funk sample, punctuated by Nate Dogg on the hook, that I studied rhythm and form somewhere between Ice Cube's eyebrows and Sugar Free's finger waves and DJ Quick's press and curl. So don't feel sorry for me, my fair friend. Just chill until the next episode. Thank you. That's the poem where I say I'm trying to imitate Mike the most. Like, how do I journey through my LA? Like Mike journeys through LA. So I'm trying to imitate Mike, so thank you. The next poem is going to be released. A version of this will be in Dryland, the new Dryland, since Cesar coming out. It's also going to be translated in Spanish. I'm so excited about that. I wish I could read it in Spanish myself, but y'all don't want to hear that. That would be an insult to the language and to the people. But next time, I will absolutely take you up on that, okay? Because I love it. I've been reading it to myself, my poor Spanish pronunciation. But this poem is also about LA, 1992, South Central Los Angeles. I am 5 years old. This poem is called Remember the Fire This Time. Mr. Lee owns the liquor store across the street. He isn't black like me, but Lee is also my father's name. And because of this, I think Mr. Lee is a nice man. And he is. One time, I put a dum-dum lollipop in my pocket before leaving the liquor store, and my mother walks me back over, makes me apologize to Mr. Lee. He lets me keep it, but I cry just the same. Latasha Harlins is 10 years older than me. Her killer gets 10 years and then doesn't. A bottle of orange juice costs $1.79 or a 15-year-old's life. A dum-dum can easily cost a kindergartner, but I don't know that yet. Mr. Lee's liquor store doesn't burn down, but on our big console TV, everything is on fire. Mr. Lee closes early on those nights. One night, or maybe every night, I see the neighborhood butcher and his friend sitting at a card table in front of the liquor store. The butcher and his friend look like my uncles. The butcher and his friend have shotguns in their laps. My father walks over with the fresh pot of coffee in one hand and his baseball bat in the other. Maybe the butcher and his friend are my family. Maybe, after all, Mr. Lee too. I am 5 years old and waiting for Soul Train, but the news is always on, is always breaking, is always busting a lip, is always fracturing a rib, is always blacking an eye, is always reporting live, is always reporting dead. The preachers on the news call for love and peace, but maybe they are missing something. I always shout, love, peace, and soul. Sitting on my knees, too close to the TV, eyes closed tight, just like I was taught to pray. And my children's Bible says, on the seventh day, God rested and admired what he had done. Maybe the unrest lasted 6 days so we could gaze upon our creation and say it was good. Thank you. I just got one more for you. This one is from Be Trouble. My book came out a month before the pandemic hit us, and I remember thinking, well, no one's going to read this now. They got other things to do. more things to be worried about than my little book of poems. And what I realized is that I needed this book of poetry just in my life, and many people also needed it, and we just needed poetry, period. And so I'm so proud to still be reading poems from it and still talking about it 2 years later, because it still lives in me. I need these poems, or I need this fight, and so I need your poems too. I'm so happy to be able to bring these poems into this space with you. So my neighborhood's being gentrified. Not slowly either. I thought it was slowly when I wrote this poem, but it's actually going quite fast. The SoFi Stadium is there, and it's kind of like a spaceship. Like it crash landed into my neighborhood, and now suddenly there's a lot of aliens around, right? There's a lot of mysterious things happening. And so this poem is called There Goes the Neighborhood. I get angry when I read this, and so I need to make a little space for myself. First, they came for our bodies, snatched my nose right off my face, then placed a forearm across my windpipe, clamped a sweaty palm over my mouth, and said the use of force was justified because I insisted on breathing. Maybe it started with the ships. First, they came for our bodies, laid us down like railroad ties, carved a path west on our backs, filled their coffers with gold and our bellies with God and other white men for us to fear. Maybe it started with the ships. First, they came for our bodies. My body looked out of place in that car. How could I afford it? It must be stolen. I was stolen, and so they made me pay for it. My body looked out of place in that neighborhood when all along my body was out of place in this country. They uprooted and planted my body here because it was fertile and would yield more crops: cotton, rice, sugar, tobacco, independence from Britain, a more perfect union. Maybe it started with the ships. First, they came for our bodies. I cradled this economy, and it nursed at my breast. It continues to reach under my clothing to be pacified and soothed. Never satisfied, this country throws tantrums because I won't bear it all for their profit, forgetting that prisoners cannot consent, and my refusal never stopped them from taking my body before. Maybe it started with the ships. First, they came for our bodies, then they came for this land. Maybe it started with music festivals, extravagant dioramas on stolen grounds where they cosplay in bejeweled bindis and dream catcher earrings and Buddha tattoos and kush and coronas and cocaine, limbs flailing like tattered flags as they dance to rhythms they beat out of indigenous bodies in boarding schools. The audacity of stars and stripes draped over their shoulders and eagle feathers in their hair. Maybe it started with the ships. Maybe it started with the new coffee shop on a corner that's been empty since the riots. The shadow of a mini market where the shopkeeper called elderly black women mama out of respect and limited English, not of neglect and unlimited anguish. We burned it in effigy. Maybe it started with the ships. Maybe it started with the new boutique with high prices and sparse racks, no layaway in their store policy, no habla español, no patience for poverty. New age vending machines looting bodegas. Fusion food trucks shaming sisters selling cocoa bread with butter and honey for the sin of gluten. The man selling oranges and cherries on the boulevard cannot compete with the new organic farmers market. Maybe it started with the ships. First, they came for our bodies, then they came for this land. Gave it a hashtag for a name, the New World. South Harlem became Soha. Spanish Harlem became Spaha. Columbia Heights, D.C. became Cohigh. South Central Los Angeles became Sola, over my dead body. Como se dice bullshit? These hipster hideaways, upper middle class settler colonies, bourgeois urban safaris. The ghetto has become a life hack. The homes we made in the barrel's bottom after white flight are now hashtag best kept secret. And the blocks where black and brown boys learn to click, click, bang, and get stuck become Plymouth Rocks for millennials wanting more bang for their buck. Maybe it started with the ships. This must be how the ancestors felt when they saw sails in the distance. The pilgrims have found us again, and this time they say they don't need our bodies, just the warm streets we leave behind. Thank y'all so much.
What a line to leave us with, man. The way that you did the poetry, with the perspective of an adult about being a kid, I mean, just gives it a new meaning and just incredible. The $1.79, the prices, that last poem with the big, the historical, the ships down to the boutique to the small, just amazing work. Thank you so much. Wow. Brenda Vaca, we continue with. Brenda Vaca is a Chicana poet, author, and independent publisher from Setanaga, unceded Tonga territory known as South Whittier, California. Riot of Roses is her debut collection of poetry. Riot of Roses Publishing House is the independent press she founded in 2021. She is currently days away from launching a Kickstarter campaign for her first children's book, Buttons Finds His Mojo. Yes, congratulations. Under the imprint of Oh My Gatos Books. You can find and follow her on I Am Brenda Vaca and at Oh My Gatos, that's plural, books on Instagram. Welcome, Brenda.
Thank you so much. I don't know how I got on the lineup, probably Matthew, so thank you so much for the invitation. So grateful to be here in this beautiful space, so inspiring. Poetry of place, so many masters in this bookstore right now. And also the ancestors keep talking to me, so I'm gonna read some new stuff. I'm gonna read some angry stuff. Wasn't always this angry woman, but here she is, and humbled to follow Bridget, Bianca, like, wow. The first poem I will read is called War Cry, and I wrote it the day that they overturned Roe v. Wade. And it's not my first abortion poem. I've got quite a collection about them. And I just also want to say, the queen is dead. Working on that poem next. War Cry. Sometimes abortion is an act of mercy. Sometimes it is a war cry. My body, my choice. Sometimes the war is mostly within, but this war would not exist if it were not for the Christo-fascist supremacist war machine that tells us you're not worthy, you're not beloved, you're not beautiful, you are not enough. Mark this day as the day we burn that cathedral to the ground. I burn it with these lyrics, each syllable a flame, eradicating your name, your stranglehold, a con game that knows no shame. So now we cast out this shame with a psalm. Turn your lyrics on their head. You'll be the ones wishing you were dead. You are not the only ones who know about the holy, that each life is sacred, each moment to be lived and cherished. Your war has baby blood on its hands, the war against my ancestors, the ones who walked before on the North Walk. And on the way back south, Huitzilopochtli shows up always in the nick to show us what's what. We have not forgotten. We are risen. Gigantes, despiértense and take your place among your people. I kept changing my mind about, like, what am I going to read to these outstanding poets before me? So I'm going to be flipping back and forth because I think I'm still deciding. But because this is Voices of California, and again, so honored to be included, I'm going to read a poem that gives love to California, a shout out specifically to Bakersfield. This is a poem called She Speaks. It's for a dear beloved of mine who lost the battle to brain cancer in the early 2000s. And it's also a shout of love to the Bay Area. I spent almost half my life in the Bay, so much love to the Bay. She Speaks for Paul David Chavez. I went silent after you. When your heart stopped, everything around slowed down, except for the screaming in my head. Solté un llanto at your gravesite the day after they buried you in Eastside Bakersfield at a cemetery just south of the railroad tracks. The Central Valley with its high cancer rates, wide farmlands in El Valle Central, pesticides generation tras generación, our people hunched over. Even after 500 years of colonization, we are still waking up. And shout out for the big win this week for our farm workers. Many more wins ahead. Healing and casting out words que nos han dañado. Yo ya no sirvo, dicen. Cast into the ointment of the ocean waters. You came to me in a dream after you died. After the brain tumor took a toll on your precious brown body. The touch of your skin when we prayed together imprinted on my fingertips until this day. I heard your voice quite clearly in the dream. I was in a long, sterile hallway, lights off, looking for you. As my hand searched for a light switch, I heard you say, "Flip the switch." My eyes snapped open, and I could only see the white walls of my bedroom in Berkeley. At your gravesite the day after you died, I did as the Hebrews do, what I learned in my class on the prophets, what I learned from Job about grief. When it hurts so much, your skin catches fire. I grabbed the earth, the fresh mound from your gravesite, and I poured it over my head, baptized again. He throws me into the mud, and I am reduced to dust and ashes. Then a vision came to me. You, healthy, whole, holding a smiling baby, a baby who had come to me in dreams years before in Tongva territory. The first time I fell in love, and the first time plagued by grief. For many years, the only words I had were for preaching. I was in seminary when we met, and in seminary when you died. Pastor was always an ill-fitting suit, preaching good news, preaching hope, preaching life. It was as if those promises were for everyone else but me. Then there came a moment where my tongue had to be loosed and pulled into place. I astral project my spirit to the Mission District in San Francisco, early 2000s. We are crossing the street, handing out flyers for a Bible study. Both of our Spanish sucks. A bird's excrement lands bullseye down my shirt and traces down the column of my spine. Good luck, your eyes glisten with levity. I am humiliated by spirit once again. Yet my heart comes to life, and your smile is a revival. Defibrillated there on the corner of 16th and Mission, bird shit running from my neck down the length of my back just before hitting the plateau of my nalgas. Taste buds unfurled on full alert, silent no more. I never get to read that piece. I'm glad to read that piece today. Ooh. This is some new-ish right here from another beautiful bookstore in Southern California, Café con Libros in Pomona. I think I was there last week, so I feel like double blessed to just be like doing the tour and being in this beautiful space. Thank you so much, Luis and Trini, for your vision and your hospitality. This one doesn't have a title just yet, but the prompt was breaking of tradition. James Coates gave us the prompt, Master James Coates. Leaving Callejón de las Artes, Maria Casillas carried her satchel with a few belongings, a whole lot of courage, a holster filled with stories, and a mean recipe for moonshine she'd be later known for in Prohibition-era Watts. This was yet another adventure in her already untraditional life. My great-grandmother had broke with tradition, and days before her wedding to a wealthy and respectable señor from her pueblo, Pénjamo, and hooked up with my great-grandfather. a small man in stature, but who apparently had the gift of persuasion. Hallelujah. She pointed herself and her tacones, pointed north, away from the land of the vultures and faced toward the land of the eagles. The north walk beckoned, a new life awaited. There was an old world dying in her. The Mexican Revolution saw to that. She was never one for religiosity. No one could claim that of her. Instead, she was known as a keen businesswoman, making her way in a machista culture up through Guanajuato, on through Juarez y El Paso, then on the train over to the city of angels, Los Angeles. Maria Casillas was made of no mold. She had a love for self and for her children, but she would not be bound by tradition. She was made to soar over El Lago de Chapala, on over the deserts, and on toward the ocean. Work in progress, work in progress. I'm going to read a poem because I think the sun just set, and I always like to read this poem when around this time of day. I don't know why. And this is a poem that was inspired by my youngest niece, Carlita, who also was one of the first people to teach me how to say no. Shout out to her parents, who taught one of her first words was no. It took me a long time to learn no. Crepúsculo. My niece calls this the pink time. It's the pink time, Dada, she says one day, holding a dandelion. Sunset, ocaso, crepúsculo, twilight, pinks and blues, the palest of yellows. Orange gives way to bright yellow. Fire spray painted across the sky. The sky paints a smile across its face like smeared lipstick after a rough kiss. Smile, it coaxes. Today we had a good day. We survived the day. It's only when night falls, when we turn around from our walk, when Coyolxauhqui rears the top of her scalp, that we remember the ones who did not survive. As the day moves, when we are awake, when it clears its smoke, we count heads and asses. Who is still alive? Who did we lose? To calm the spirit in our grief, when the wave of loss threatened to blow us away and we struggle to breathe, whisper, I am still here. We are on lockdown, counting heads and rationing frijoles y arroz, tomate y ajo, and forgetting creator counts even the hairs on our head. Cover your crown. Anoint your own head with oil, shroud your heart with prayers, outline its voluptuous shape with rayos de sol y el resplandor de la luna. Imagine it is vibrating warmth. Listen for the laughter of children. It will defibrillate your heart. It will pulse again. And when it does, claim, I am still here. I am still here. I am still here. I am still here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we definitely got to make sure we have a chance for everyone to promote their stuff, right? Some incredible books. And I know Matt's doing a great job on the link. So sorry for your loss. Thank you for sharing that poem with us. You and Doug show us the elegy is an incredible form and it can be done extremely well. That line, that smile is a revival, was for sure memorable. I was reminded of Bridget's where Bridget wrote something to the effect of putting God in our bellies. And your line was about the Christo-fascist, and I was just reminded of those links. Thank you so much. We have up next Tracy Kato Kiriyama, otherwise known as TKK, is the author of Navigating Without Instruments. You talk about a book that is indescribable in the best sense of the word. That's that book right there. You talk about somebody who lives and breathes art and creativity, and that's Tracy. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Tia Chuchas. Thank you, Luis and Trini. I just have to take this in for a second. I'm part of a space in Little Tokyo called the Tuesday Night Project, and we have a show that's been going on the first and third Tuesdays every month since February of 1999. Next year, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary of Tuesday Night Cafe. So I have like a little bit of an insight into how hard it is to co-create space and to maintain it. So I'm blown away. I'm just blown away by this space. And so thank you so much for inviting us in. And I invite you all out. We're going to be doing a lot of special events. I haven't been curating the show in a long time, but I'm going to curate some special poetry-only events. So you know that I'm going to be calling all of you to come into this space. So, yeah. I don't ever get a chance to just focus on one theme. Well, I guess I could. I haven't chosen to. There's a lot of different themes in this book, and today I don't know why I was just feeling like death poems. So I don't actually read a lot of these, and I feel like I'm going to just try it with you. Okay. Okay. All right, so there's a series, there's a lot of, poetry, poetics, micro-essays, notes to self, and this one was something I wanted to write for myself, to myself. Note to self. 8 billion alive. Well over 100 billion dead. Where did all that ash and skin and blood and bone and energy go? If not to hang out and potluck once in a while with the energy of the trillions more deceased animals and plants. This might actually be very terrible. That could mean an incredible amount of universal lamentation circulating throughout our systems. Perhaps climate change is a combination of human ravaging of Earth's resources and the mourning of our actions by the dead. Or maybe it is an offering, an energetic cosmic system of 100 million orchestras trying to enjoy their own nirvana, coming together for a final gift of generosity to Earthlings. A set of warnings via natural disaster in hopes that we finally learn to treat self, other, and all through every waking moment as if the flood was rising and the fire was down the block. And we had no other thought but to call out, grab the first hand, look for every last person, ask for help, make sure everyone was okay. How will you do more of this in your everyday, from week to week, month to month, season to season? What introductions do you need to make with your neighbors? Where are the unnatural disasters that need more of our attention, and what are you going to do next? Life is quickly disappearing. Have something good to report when you join the dead. Thanks. Death. Dying. I'm going to read these out loud. I've never done this. So wrote a bunch of death moments. Some people call them near-death experiences. But you know how it is when it goes beyond a near, right? So I just attached them to different ages. So this one is Death Moment 42. Bury the last question of every month and every missed period and every flu and cold and odd bump and lump. Bury the morbid lists and letters and hypotheticals that drive RJ crazy. Bury that moment we looked at each other from across the room, cursing not the disease or the diagnosis, but each other's inconvenient plans for the next week. Bury each fear with each death of those who go before their time. Bury the lost time. Bury no curiosity but the one of how much time left. Bury the clocks, all of them. Thanks. Death moment 16. Three juniors playing 5 seniors in chicken on Sepulveda. We were off to rent 3 men and a baby at the warehouse. Then hit, boom, sail, float, blink, void, hush, no flash of life, just the nothing silence. Middle back seat of would-be vinyl cemetery in an Accord before center belts. Sandwiched between Kathy and Yoko, all the glass in our skin. Surpassed near death, I said, okay, to dead. Nodded head, okay, then. Jaws of life came to pull me out of proportion. Lights back up, boom, the everything noise. Bury the half-truth of coincidence, not much before dying that day. Bury the old self, the nothing to lose before now, the fascination with a friend who took theirs. We had been standing near a sidewalk, staring at our feet on grass, on asphalt, talking about cousins and futures, then nothing of him. Death, alive, gone too soon. Bury, can't, shouldn't, don't, maybe, okay if dead, alive now, everything, promise, forget never living. Death moment 24. Beaudry in Figueroa Terrace was more than cheap rent, more than my students from Castellar pinning a clock to my door, more than that guy telling me, shut up if you want to be okay, more than whispers, you're going to be okay, more than, okay, shoot him, tossed behind his shoulder, which was the lie, more than, who the hell did we think we were living in Chinatown? More than the shiny nail neighbors sticking too far out on return past 1 a.m. Bury the target we put on our backpack, take everything but. Bury the gravelback molars, the life did flash, the blood asphalt. Bury the gaze locked between my eyes and the sidewalk. Bury the screaming when nobody comes, gonna scream anyway. And sometimes a death moment is not just ours, right, but one we witness. So this was me witnessing very close to my father when he died. Death moment 31. Open the ground. Me and Ma lay down on either side. Unbury the bulging eye before you flopped back to gift final breaths. Beg you to return in every dream. Point me to the shovel, the best soil. Forgive this granddaughter and child of gardeners for disliking persimmons and not being able to save your lemon tree. Unbury the superstitions. They soften my tumble into regret. Never a 4th floor, never 4 stems, never a 4th grandchild. Unbury the forgotten promise, the notion of no regrets, love, regret. But to look up past their heaven to a sky of 100 billion dead, you are in the dimension of fireside pupils who stare down at us, piss acid rain on our arrogance, shout toward the clock we pummeled before it was too late. And last, this is for all of us. Note to world. I wish you a moment of death. Is that too harsh to say or too hard to hear? If only to have you come out of it fine and ultimately unhurt, but to be shaken into life, to be woken into the center of yourself, reaching first for your own air, gasping at your own brilliance, granting yourself the permission to say yes to the initial whisper, the one you fear to hold too long because it is the idea, the challenge, the journey you know at the pit of your intuition that you need to take. If only to go through some end and exist in utter, undeniable gratitude, forgiveness, and movement forward, to have you full of courage and determination to weather by all means necessary the overwhelming, ever-present internal or external force of fear. I wish you a good moment of death. Thank you so much.
Navigating Without Instruments. Heck of a book. I was just struck by how some of the questions that came through Tracy's work, some of the questions in the poems, how silent it was in here, and those questions were just lingering in the air, as great poetry does for you to think about. And yeah, I haven't thought about near-death experiences ever since reading about death moments. It's a different thing. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure now to be joined by Gina Duran. Gina Duran. Woo. Gina, as an artist, poet, and educator with a focus on marginalized youth, Gina Duran is the founder of the IE Hope Collective, an outreach that helps people living on the streets and in shelters, and provides poetry, art, and yoga workshops for low-income, homeless, foster refugee, and LGBTQ2+ youth. She was the guest editor of Boundless 2022, of the Rio Grande Valley International Poetry Festival, and is currently the host for the collective on KQBH-LA. Works from her debut collection of poetry called And So the Wind Was Born, published by the great Flower Song Press, can be found in her story mixtape collection at the Autry Museum of the American West in LA, and Life in Quarantine Project at Stanford University. When she's not making art and building community, Duran is a first semester MFA grad student at Antioch University in LA. Yeah. While she works as a substitute teacher, yoga instructor, massage therapist, and youth program director. She feels art and community can and will lead to positive change. Yeah. Welcome.
Hello, thank you everybody. Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having me here at the Chuchas and for allowing me to be part of this beautiful group of people. It's all about community, which is, I don't know if you got it yet, but I'm all about community too. So first I'm gonna read a couple pieces. I had a hard time deciding, I wanted to answer all of you, because I have I have a poem about that too. Oh wait, I didn't bring that one. So I'm just gonna read, there we go. I'm gonna go with, it's hard to decide because I only have my readers. Okay. Fontana is where the winds destroyed everything. Fontana is where the valley lied between the hills and mountains. Tiny dirt devils twirl in tumbleweed paths. Loose gravel flings about as many tornadoes feverishly shred papers in schoolyards and shoot out the brittle golden thorns that cling to socks and shoes, stabbing the soles of feet. Fontana is where the Santa Ana winds thrive by devouring rooftops and tree roots. They howl and screech with fury in the night, disguising the screams behind wrought iron gates and hiding in the corners where oxygen leaves lungs wet with tears masked by smiles. The Santa Ana winds move trash in the night. They sound like fists knocking on the door at 2 a.m. They thrive from the hot air and swirl like the madness contained in the barrel of a pistol of a teenage gangbanger looming under a large oak tree on the lawn of a high school, taking cover with piercing screams thrashing through the leaves. The Santa Ana winds rush down the halls, slapping doors open and kicking dirt on the tile. They slide under tennis shoes and screams of gunmen running by. The Santa Ana winds rush past all the new buildings that once had fields with horses trotting through grape vineyards and kumquat trees where stalkers sleep. The Santa Ana winds roll giant tumbleweeds across junkyards with meth heads who sell drugs to teenage girls who drop out of school for their next fix. The Santa Ana winds smack mirrored blinds against windows while a mother kicks her daughter in the gut. The Santa Ana winds leave her lungs as she falls down the steps onto the laundry room floor. The Santa Ana winds bang against bodies like a 10-year-old girl being beaten by a door torn off the hinges. The Santa Ana winds rush to tear away the shingles of the house when a 17-year-old girl gets raped by her boyfriend, but she's only remembers saying no. The Santa Ana winds witness her frail 27-year-old body flattened to the concrete in Riverside. The Santa Ana winds wrap over and around her, rushing into her lungs as people step over her body, laying under the February sun. The Santa Ana winds encase her and escape between her lips as she mumbles incoherently to paramedics. The Santa Ana winds reek of her black charcoal vomit all over her hospital gown and creep up her slip as she enters her coma state. The Santa Ana winds witness when she left her remains and took her last breath. Her son and daughter stared out the window at the sun sizzles and pops beneath the ocean waves, and the moon peeks through the clouds, forever dreaming of winds altering stars and memories. The next day, a breeze lay tucked into the sheets as she gathered her heat to gain momentum, ready to meet something other than the Santa Ana winds. Stolen win. The thick sepia-stained air split onto the sun, the color of burnt orange seeping through clouds of billowing smoke. I wandered out to raining ash and cooled ember puddles on my bare toes to attempt to play in my garden and talk to my plants. Normally, the lavender and sage swim in the scent of redwood chips, but today the stale sun ferments under the sapper of soot and seasons the soil with flavors of Redlands, California. Not because the sun was so hot, rotted, withered, and singed the fruits of our labors, or even because some careless camper forgot that campfires are hazardous in the arid summer heat. No. A puff of blue shot out to reveal the news of some child's genitalia, a child who will forever remember that their family's repugnance destroyed 20,000 acres of wildlife. And they weren't the first. Why? Ignorance and hate are burning down the country with their constructs, gender, sexualities, xenophobia, racism. Breonna Taylor was murdered in her sleep, and no one did a thing. Her win was stolen. The police officer was punished for shooting a bullet through a wall. The wall received restitution. It will rest in peace. It was probably white. George Floyd's last words were, "I can't breathe," while his wind was crushed by racist blue life. I have yet to meet a blue person, but I hear their lives matter every time a black person is murdered by one. White supremacists, militia, and anti-vaxxers stood with shotguns and red, white, and blue, and the country reopened. Ahmaud Arbery was chased, beaten, and gunned down, never to feel the breath of the sun again. The raging fire scorched the earth because black football players can't kneel during the anthem. The Navajo are suffocating from COVID-19, their lungs deprived of air for their ancestors who breathed as they walked before the soil was colonized. Brown and black bodies are gathered in a pile, hung in trees, sex trafficked, stolen. But soon, no one will suffer in cages or lie on the streets in their broken vessels of bones. The choice of life has been cut from their bodies of non-white women, forced sterilization, eugenics, genocide. Genocide is the fire ignited at the parties of racists. Dead people don't celebrate gender reveal parties, and queer and trans people celebrate coming out after they shed their forced gender roles. When I see the slinky, swirling movements of the aurora borealis dissolving in the transforming like watercolor on black canvas sky, I think how beautiful it must be to be without borders. How beautiful it must be to exist through an electromagnetic pull, becoming one with the universe and the earth, where all the colors exist in a symphony of light. And this is a new one for my new book. It'll be a while because I'm working on it. Slithery like a snake goddess. I press the palms of my hands against the calico marked marble of the shower wall, my arms quivering in question of what was to come. Weight of water beating on my back, pressing heavily on my thoughts racing somewhere unknown. Echoes of my mother's voice, you're slithery like a snake. Echoes of my mother slithering in the echoes of my mind. I answered in a hiss, so slithery. Snake, serpent woman, strong, slithery, snake goddess. I push the tile harder with wishes washing over my 45-year-old face, turning the color of clay. Coatlicue rose from my solar plexus, pushing through plastered walls, a hungry hurricane housed in a human. Tick, tick, hum, hum, whir, whir, whir. The ceiling fan clanked, plotting its escape from the zzz of the whispering lights hissing their way through my thalamus. Thunder shook the tiled floor. Time waved backwards and forwards. You're slithery like a snake, shouted a memory. The showerhead sprayed. A serpent woman in the rain appeared, standing upright. You're slithery like a snake, goddess, hissed a sultry voice, full with curves shaped in my hips, round memories of Mother Earth, powerful creator and destroyer of all things, declared again. You're slithery like a snake, goddess, powerful, strong, mother, artist, poet, destroyer. I looked at my hands, wet with tears of my creation. My creation? Who am I? I thought. Coatlicue answered a sultry, Sorvan voice. Surrendering in stillness and credence, I released control. The serpent goddess clenched her solar plexus and beat her vagus nerve like a drum. Thump, 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 boom, up towards her beating breast, over her critchley. She panted and hissed, the vomit up the screams of my childhood nightmares for me, hissing out the poison of the past. The earth quaked, her body flung out onto the blue carpet, bedraggled and bare. The earth swallowed her up as she kicked and scratched my father. She begged the earth to devour her. It did. She slithered and hissed into the most obscure parts of me, until I woke dowdy and disrobed, but safely present in my room, my black cat purring warmly, vibrating over my manipura. And then just this last one, which is super fast, and I did this one for Antelope Valley, and it's an ekphrastic poem. The mess of entwined polyvinyl chloride covered entities trapped in a soda bottle, sinking to the ocean bottom, beckoning, breaking glass into sand and seashells wrapped up in waves of sea foam, white plastic bags bound to educated fish, wistfully straying from schools in the mess of superficial pipe dreams taught by catfish walkers with polymer worms on hooks, colonizing history, herstory, and our stories all washed up in the mess we're in, leading us closer to legacy of the lost, further from mother's silky sand and seaweed seas, shouting, break your bottle into the surrendering shore, collapsing under the listless light of the smog, smothered moon, waning in wait for the scorching sun or reckless rains to reduce wild winds into educating entwined entities to see their paths at their polyvinyl chloride covered feet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. One of the lines was Symphony of Light. What a great sweater. Love the kicks. And every poet's dream, right? Got the book with the stickers or the Post-its. That book has been well loved and well read, right? Yeah. The way that you took us through with the Santa Ana winds was shocking and beautiful and all of the above. Thank you so much. The next and last poet for tonight, really needs no introduction, or mejor, I could never do him justice, right? For all the things that he's done over the years in the poetry space and the community space. And so it's an absolute honor to introduce Luis J. Rodriguez.
So, great poetry, wonderful, wonderful poetry, and this is what keeps me going. I don't know about you, but it keeps me going. Poetry everywhere. I just have three poems. I work these poems very hard. They're not just poems, but anyway, the point is, I have three poems I want to share. First of all, by the way, please donate to Tia Chucha's, because that's one of the things that we really need. You help us by giving us donations. There's a way to donate here one time, or even join our monthly Dream Makers. Please support whatever we do here. Trini's here, so I want to just say hello to my beautiful wife, Trini. Yeah, so this wouldn't be Tia Chucha's without her. I have a poem that I wrote. As you know, I do a lot of work in all kinds of areas, and people might know that I do a lot of work among the homeless as well. People don't know this. Maybe I work among prisoners, gang kids, but I do work among the homeless. Part of the reason is because when I was a teenager, I was homeless for 3 years, and then I had homeless bouts after that. I tell you one really, I had a job one time, and they fired me. So I ended up sleeping in the parking lot in my car because I didn't have any more money and no place to stay. You know how that goes. These are stories that we do. But anyway, I was in Pacoima in an encampment, and I was walking around talking to people, and I saw this guy drawing. So I wrote a poem, and it's called Gold and Grime and Gold, and it's a long poem. I'm only going to read the first part, okay? Grime and Gold. Soft wind, curling dust. Cars and trucks lend rhythm to a Pacoima viaduct dance. With plastic bags, fast food cartons, leaves, and scrap paper trapped in a Milky Way on the ground. Under the roadway, as tires and engines growl above, a houseless man among an enclave of weather tents sits on a bucket, his arms splayed over a splintered plywood board on a makeshift desk of boxes. He draws. Next to him, an illustrated book of birds, dirt crusted into cracks of spine and cover. Using a pencil, the man carefully incisions the lines, methodically shades in a spectrum of black to gray on a torn sketchbook page, his most valued asset, in a place of no assets except for what sings in his bones. He draws and the city breathes with him. No smog, no industry, no rumbling soundtracks from above. The birds, the air, the land, the sun, the trees, the earth. On that blank paper, the man designs another landscape with no poisons, with new roads that curve toward new houses. He draws birds, yet I witness in his hand what launches new spaces, new parks, new abodes, where everyone belongs, where nobody has to stake a claim because all are claimed, where no one is blocked from flowering, so birthings appear all the time, everywhere, every day, every hour, every click of a clock's seconds hand. The drawn birds polished from grime to gold. How the more you excavate, the finer things become. How the lines fly, fly, fly in a vortex of dust and cartons. So, here it is. I used to read this poem a lot, and then I stopped reading it for a long time. But the other day, I started reading it on a couple of Zoom calls. I was doing some events, and Trini heard it one time, and she said, "Hey, it sounded a little different." I'm going to read it to you, and the reason why it's important is because, as you know, I go to my indigenous roots. I do that consciously. I do that with my heart. That's who I am. I'm an original people. And I don't mind saying that because when you're Mexican and Chicano, people think you're not. They think you're everything else but that, almost. And you have to really stand up for that because otherwise they will label you something else. And to me, it's important because before there was borders, before there was nation states, we were all migrants, all of us. We all migrated. Migrancy was part of who we were. We migrated to get out of famine. We migrated to find better lands. We migrated to follow the animals, whatever. We migrated because that's who we are. We've always been this way. And now we're imprisoned by the nation state. People can't do that anymore. Now they have to have papers, passports, and and then if they're in famine, as it happens in a lot of parts of the world, they can't leave. They have to starve. You know, if not, they become refugees and they're treated badly. We've created a world that is made up of lines and borders. And I want to honor the migrants, wherever they may be, whoever they may be. So this poem is called Seguro que Hell Yes. It's from a song by the Tejano accordion player Flaco Jimenez. And if you don't know what Seguro que sí means, Seguro means like sure, yes in Spanish. It's like, o claro que sí, of course yes. Or verdad que sí, true yes. In other words, it's an adamant yes, yeah. Seguro que sí. So he wrote a song called Seguro que Hell Yes, which is a super duper yes, So, the poem goes like this. We have passed this way before, laden with sod, skeleton tongues marking the dark. We have eaten of this dust. We have scraped it off our faces. We have dreamed this wound, this world of vileness, tantas veces that it's a song beneath our breathing. Seguro que sí. We knew it was coming before it came. Ya hemos pasado por este camino. Envenom eyes seek us. Taunting mouths greet us. The most rooted people of the land are the most revered and the most despised, making us myths even as Mother Earth daily births us. We cross many borders and cross into ourselves. This America that Emerson called a poem is a barbed wire. Our sweat, our blood, and the lágrimas shed for thee are fashioned into a prison. Freedom for some is slavery for me. Whenever they lie, part of us is murdered. This we know, and our children cannot let it be. This we know, and we challenge our skins to take it on. This we know because we have passed this way before. Seguro que sí. Cactus bedding at our feet, snake curling through our limbs. Ya hemos pasado por este camino, and we can never stop coming. The desert calls us, the fire-scarred trees, the dried bones of elders, the silent screaming of stones. They call us back, and we come because we have died so many times to the sun, because we belong to the rivers wild, because we never feared the blue in the eye, the green in the heart, the shearing laws and guns and lies, because we dreamed all of this, and now we are awake to dream again. Seguro que hell yes. So I'm going to end with one poem that I read before, but I think like all poems, it's like when every time I watch this mural, I discover new things. It's like one of these things, good paintings, good words, good poetry, you always discover new things. That's what makes it art. And so I'll read, I don't mind reading again, because maybe if you heard it, you'll discover something new about it. But it's the first time I came into poetry, and I have to start with a story that I've related before, but I don't mind saying it again. I'm also a South Central kid, which is good. My first place when we moved from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, was Watts. It was my community till I was 8 years old. Great community, loved it. I didn't know we were poor. I didn't know what poverty was until I moved to the San Gabriel Valley. Then I realized, oh, there is poverty, But the worst thing about that community wasn't the people, it was the school. And I remember in those days, I was 6 years old, where you couldn't speak Spanish or they would hit you. They would swat you. And I remember one time I spoke a Spanish word in a class, and a teacher slapped me across the face in front of the whole class. Well, I will tell you that slap has been screaming at me ever since. It's been pushing me ever since. It first brought me into a lot of silence because I couldn't speak my language anymore. And again, it's a colonial language, I get it, but I didn't know my indigenous language, so it's my language. But it also, they didn't teach us English very well. So my battle to find a language, to find a voice, has always been a struggle. And I did it by rage. I just raged at the world. It wasn't just that. It was all the beatings I got when I was growing up, all the beat downs, the bullies, my parents, my mom in particular hitting me, and my brother, sibling abuse. If you know anything about sibling abuse, it's very awful. Happens a lot. People don't talk about it. My poor older brother, he's dead now, and I love him, but he really knocked me around for a long time. And so all this stuff, it took the form of a lot of rage. And the way that I raged, unfortunately, was to join a gang. I was in a gang at 11 years old, to do drugs. I did every drug, heroin for 7 years. And I was homeless, like I said. I was in and out of jails, juvenile hall, 2 adult facilities. I was quite a mess. So I would say that there's a couple of things that saved me. One was that I found language in books. When I was homeless, I would go to the Central Public Library, and I read all kinds of books. And I was just learning English, and I just kept reading. And even if I didn't know the words, I just kept, I would always say words wrong, like impotent instead of impotent, or vulnerable, because I didn't know how to say vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? In other words, I just would use, the way it sounded is the way that I would pronounce it. But the books were my saving grace. And then I also had art, and I had people that tried to mentor me out of that craziness, that madness, that saved me. And I don't want to get into too much other than it's hard to leave that la vida loca unless you have a very caring community. And my caring community was very small, but it was enough, 2 or 3 people. 1 mentor, youth counselor, 1 teacher, you know what I'm saying? Just people who cared. That to me is important. And I call it not scared straight, but cared straight. And that's what I do out there to help people. This is what this place is. So when I was 18 years old, I kind of let go heroin for a while. I dropped out, and my mentor got me back to high school. He got me to paint murals because I'm a big graffiti artist, and instead of doing all this intricate graffiti, he wanted me to paint murals, and I did. My agreement with him was that I would go back to school. I didn't want to go back to school. I hated school, but I was a person of my word. That's where you were in the street. I tell people, gang members, they don't really, at least the stone gangsters that I know, they don't really marry you if you got a gun, if you shoot people, even if you got tattoos. All that stuff doesn't make you a gangster. What makes you a gangster is that you could be trusted. And this is hard nowadays. Yet you had your palabra. You know what I'm saying? Palabra was everything. And nowadays, I don't see it. You know, maybe it's still there, but nobody has palabra anymore. So I stood by my word. He got me to paint murals. I did 10 murals and with 8 with gang kids. And then I went back to school just because that was my word. Anyway, I let go drugs for a while, and then when I graduated, and I didn't graduate cap and gown because I was very late. I had to work very hard to get my credits. You know, there was no GED in those days, so you had to get your credits before you're 18. I just got my diploma in the principal's office. He practically threw it at me because he didn't think I was going to make it. He kept discouraging me. He said, "You're not going to make it." And he was surprised, and he just threw it at me. "Get out of here." But I got it. And then I got very depressed, and so I went back to heroin. I got very depressed. I went back, and things got worse. I got arrested a couple of times for serious things, attempted murder. And then the last thing I got arrested for was supposedly fighting with police, but it wasn't. But that's another story. I won't get into it now. But one thing that happened was I had been writing on a little notepad that I carried around, but also an old beat-up Remington typewriter that my dad had thrown away in the garage. And I had been homeless, but I took over a little room that I used when I was burglarizing places and stashed stuff in there and as a drug den. But I also found this typewriter, and I started typing there. And so I started to type these words. And this is where a teacher stood up. She saw the work, and she typed it up in onion paper. Beautiful. It was all quite a mess. And I didn't even know it was my words. She says, "This is your work." No, I didn't do this. No, it's your work. I didn't change anything. It's your work. And then she submitted to a contest, which I thought was weird, but I actually won honorable mention. Although for you might know this, El Grito, they used to have the Quinto Sol literary. Okay, so they gave great awards to great people. I think at the time, it might have been Rolando, Jose Smith won, but I got honorable mention. I was 18 years old, had no idea what this meant, but they gave me $250, man. In 1973, that's a lot of money, especially clean money, especially good money. I was like, and then they put me on a plane for the first time in my life. I got on a plane. And that wasn't the whole story. The story was that I got there, we did some readings and events, but I was still on heroin. So I was hurting, and I'm like, man, I got to get out of here. So I was going to sneak out of this little hotel that had me there in Berkeley. This is the North and South story, North California, Southern California. And I'm up there, and I'm thinking, I'm going to sneak out and score, because you can score anywhere. I knew where I would find somebody to score. So I was getting ready to walk out of there, and sure enough, in the lobby was all these people. And they said, "Listen, we want to invite you to a poetry reading." I go, "Oh, my God, I don't want to go to a poetry reading. I don't even know what poetry was." No, but I thought, well, I'm going to go with them, then I'll sneak out when I get a chance. So I went with them to this poetry reading. Oh, my God. It changed my life, my first poetry reading. And I'm going to read you a poem about why. It's called Fevered Shapes. And it's dedicated to the 3 poets that I heard that night, who you might know: Jose Montoya, the godfather of Chicano poetry; David Henderson, who was the leading African-American poet at the time; and the amazing Puerto Rican Pedro Pietri. Can you imagine these 3 guys were there? Oh, I didn't know who they were. It didn't matter. So it was powerful. Here's the poem. I wallowed in a needle-spawned world, addicted to dope and the crazy life, and yet there I was in Berkeley for my first poetry reading. I was 18 with a bullet, as they say. Earlier, I had flown on a plane for the first time. Sure, I've survived half a dozen gun assaults, cops knocking me around, ODs, blades to my neck in jail cells, homelessness in dank streets, and beatdowns and radio brawls. But flying, that scared me to death. I sat there in a crowded cafe not knowing what to expect. Poetry? I never heard this before. Oh, I had written lines, vignettes, images, fears, thoughts. I didn't know they were poems. I had no idea what a poem was. First up on the mic was Jose Montoya, with Chicano prayers of old pachucos and strained loves and guitar solos in Indian hands in cornflower. Then David Henderson took the stage, gleaning urban black streets, racist stares, Black Panther fury, and Southern cooking. Finally, Pedro Pietri came up, Nuyorican wordmeister, flashing at Radio's experiences with poems located in phone booths and real-life wisdoms that made us laugh and shake our heads. I had never heard words spoken this way. More music than talk, more fevered shapes than sentences, more Che and Malcolm than Shakespeare. These poems came for me, lassoed my throat, demanded my life savings, taking me for a sunset ride. These poems were graffiti scrawls along the alleys and trash-strewn tunnels of my body, the metaphoric methadone for the heroin hurling through my bloodstream, the lifeline I already had inside and didn't know. These poems were pool sticks, darkened gangways, a swirl of sunrise after the graveyard shift, a blood-black yelling behind torn curtains, a child shrieking, and nobody coming to help. These poems were shadowed, intense, startled doubts, sorrows without grief, the moon without sky, unknown melodies, the falling inside that happens when you push razor onto wrist. They came for me as I sank into my suicide, while fidgeting in a chair, inching under the skin as I wondered why I even came. Jose, David, and Pedro, I was never the same after this. They came for me and I've never let go. They came for me and I perspired poems ever since. They came for me and all my addictions, my sorry-ass lies, my falling masks, my pissed-off wives, neglected children, angry friends, and back-to-back failures could never, ever take them away. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
The line about teaching more Che and Malcolm than Shakespeare, and I think that goes throughout the all the educators in here. Bridge is talking about teaching some people in this very room, and just the idea that like our students need to know that poetry wasn't written 400 years ago. There are some incredible poets in front of us tonight. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. Thanks for having us here at Tia Chucha's. Please, please, please donate. I want to say it's just Tia Chucha /donate. All kinds of incredible programs that are done here. Thank you, everybody, so much. I believe, Petrushka, we're going to say something. Please come on up. And we'd also love to take a photo at the end, those who can stay. Okay. Oh, okay.
So, good evening. Month of celebrating native indigenous cultures throughout the world. And I work at least with 5 different tribes in California, plus Mayas and Chumash Indians, and they call them Indians, And then I've met in America a person who told me, the very first month I'm in America, and I didn't come as an immigrant, I came with a special visa. She said, you don't behave like a white person. And I looked at her and I said, what do you mean white person? I'm not good enough and I'm not white enough for Anglo-Saxons because I'm a Slavic person. She looked at me and I was thankful that my son was not around to hear this. And all my life I taught my children, you have to respect everybody because you never know who's going to respect you more than you even think and help you in this life. So with my very short poem, I'd like to honor the earth of Native American people We step on this earth. We raise children on this place. We dream our dreams and our realization on the land of Native American people. And I'm inspired because I'm also playing didgeridoo and all these native things in Australia and New Zealand. So dance under the Joshua trees. They are there, the silent rocks with painted dreams. In the ancient Mojave Desert, old people say, dance with us and you will read all dreams from ancient times. I'd love to know what happened then. I'd like to read the magic stones, so I'm dancing and dancing under the stars of the midnight sky. The rhythm of drums crossing the time, going back when the world began. My heart is a drum, a rhythmic drum. I'm dancing and dancing. I'm free and light. I'm feeling the wings of a magic bird. I'm hearing songs once being sung. I'm dancing steps once being danced. I'm a little part of the dream today. I'll be a part of the dreams tomorrow. And reading the dreams once painted on rocks in the ancient Mojave Desert. And thank you for having me because you really inspired me with your work.